for the last time. My name is Dr. Carraway-Stage. I'm an assistant professor in nutrition science at East Carolina University. This video is the last in a series of short presentations describing how to write a research manuscript for the first time. In the next few minutes, I'm going to talk about tips and useful resources for writing a research manuscript. Many of these ideas came directly from students who were writing a manuscript for the first time, as well as from my own experience. So to start, no matter how many papers you've written, it's always difficult to get the writing process started. So for this reason, you have to set time aside to set up a writing schedule. Allender, a nutrition science student, talks a little bit about the importance of this.
Personally, I think my biggest challenge was finding time. Personally, I'm such a morning person, and I like to get things done in a day. But unfortunately, due to responsibilities and class, it was practically impossible to do so. So typically when I was working on my research brief, it was at night when I was tired and was no longer motivated to do it.
So you can see how Allender really felt like setting time aside that was viable in her schedule was important because it made the process all that much more difficult. So just like with anything, if you don't practice regularly, you're not going to succeed in writing. To be a productive writer, you have to set time aside to do it. So try setting off 1 to 2 hours or more a week in your schedule and consider them non-countable appointments. The amount of time that you're going to need to set aside will depend on how much time you have to write the paper as well as how big the project is. But make sure that you set a writing schedule. Also find a time that works best for you when your head is clear. Some like to write in the morning, others like to write at night. It doesn't matter as long as you find a time that works for you and stick with it. And set yourself deadlines. It's easier to stick with this schedule when you have deadlines that you're sticking to as well. Don't procrastinate. Actually spend time getting ahead. The organization tips I mentioned in the beginning of this video can help with that, but it's really important that you don't get behind. And Cody talks a little bit about this tip.
Definitely get ahead. Go ahead and pick out as many articles as you can, print them off, start reading, start highlighting, and go from there.
So another tip is finding models that can guide you through the process. I actually recommend first reading a useful article entitled How to Write Your First Manuscript, and I cite this at the end of this video so that you can find it easily. Then I also recommend finding one or more published articles that use similar methodology to your study, or maybe they have a similar format to the manuscript you're writing. It's always a good idea to pull a couple articles from the journal you're going to submit to, because that gives you a model to follow when you're constructing your own manuscript. And having these models on hand actually are really important. They make the process much easier, and Madison talks a little bit about that.
Read more than just the abstract, because sometimes it looks like the abstract is not pertaining to your study, but then their own background research has either information pertaining to your study or has other sources in it that you can then go to get more relevant information to you. And also, like, the reference list at the end of one article has similar sources that you can go to for more information.
Use your resources wisely. You have a ton of resources at your fingertips. You just have to access them. A couple of examples include your writing center. If you're working with a faculty member, your faculty member, maybe fellow students that you're working with as well. Make sure that you're accessing and using your resources wisely. Allender and Sammy actually talk a little bit about the resources they used when they were constructing their manuscript.
I'm definitely using the library search, the one search, and all the different databases from the library. Google was great. We'll just, search our topic in Google.
I used RefWorks originally so I could organize everything, and then I really used my annotated bid. That was probably the best thing that I could have done with my literature review.
So some of the resources that you may not be thinking about is the University Writing Center. There are always liaisons on hand that can help you through this process. Utilizing the one search to find references, articles for your research. Accessing RefWorks is a way to get your research organized. It really is useful when you're doing your review of literature to organize the articles you found, but it also becomes very useful in the citation process when you begin writing your manuscript. The library also has research guides that you can access. Our course, the link for it, Nutrition Research Methodology, is listed there, but there's research guides for many other courses as well, and you can access those if needed. So use your resources, particularly at Joiner Library, wisely. I also recommend accessing some general publications to help you through this process. The first one is the one I mentioned previously, How to Write Your First Research Paper. Is extremely helpful going through the process. It describes a lot of the things I've talked about as well, but has it in one nice place in terms of presenting things you should do to get organized, as well as what you should do for each of the components. There's also some really useful outlines for the different sections presented in that paper. There's a couple other citations here that you might find useful. The Journal of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics published a paper on how to start publishing nutrition research. If you're interested, there's multi-parts to that, but the first part, the article listed here, is the most useful. There's a paper by Khaled on how to write a methods section. It also includes some basic science methodology if you are from a basic science background. And then the UNC also has some helpful handouts on writing in the sciences or technical writing. So I want to thank a few people. This is the last video in this series. Guy Iverson, who's an ECU writing mentor, helped tremendously throughout the spring 2014 semester, and a lot of his feedback was incorporated into this video series. Madison, Cody, Allender, and Sammy for their time and input on this video and their willingness to be recorded. I want to also thank the spring 2014 Nutrition Research Methodology course and all the students in that class, for they gave a lot of useful feedback that helped inform this video series. Finally, their ECU Writing Center and the 2014 Spring WAC Academy, particularly Carrie Flinchbaugh, and all their support and guidance through this process.